Well, hello. Here we are again. Um, I'm gradually easing myself into this 21st century technology. So please bear with me. I'm sure you are. Well, it's quite a bright day here up on the fens of East Anglia, Cambridgeshire. And I hope that it finds you in good spirits because, you know, it's the best thing to try and be optimistic under all circumstances, and particularly at this time when we're all going through it one way or another. And of course, we are very concerned for all those who are ill at this time. We ought to congratulate the UK Prime Minister and his partner on the birth of their son. Congratulations to them. And of course, it's what makes the world go round, isn't it? Having babies. And it's very nice that there is no criticism that can be afforded the happy couple, unlike the situation for countless others who are who may be condemned for actually having children at all, or maybe having them in circumstances that are not conducive, and coming for criticism for one reason or another. I was among that number myself, and so I have great sympathy and empathy for people who bring children into the world and are not congratulated on the fact, although I believe that everybody should be, because the only way that we can all enjoy this life is to be born into it. And to be born into it, we just come in the same way as everybody else, and regardless of our conditions and situation and circumstances. So I think we should all be grateful, and I think we should be celebratory about any child that's born, because it's another person, another human being, and it has such great potential. Every human being has a potential, so for benefiting the world around them, others, and so there we are. So never let it be said that I can say in 2 or 3 words what could be better put in 50 to 100. Now, I was going to talk about mediumship, and all sorts of practices surrounding spiritualism, what we call spiritualist phenomena. Other people like to label it sort of paranormal, so it sounds a bit more sort of scientific, but I'm a religious spiritualist, so I don't mind talking about it in a mystical way, really, and a spiritual way. And of course, mediumship itself is how spiritualism, modern spiritualism, began, only in 1848, which is not that long ago. I doubt that I'll be around to see its bicentenary, but I have been here to celebrate its sesquicentenary, which was something dreamed up by Charles Colston, General Secretary, as he was then of the Spiritualist National Union. And we celebrated 150 years at Stansted Hall in the sanctuary there. It was great. Anyway, I suppose you could say that part of my experiences of spiritualism. And of course, as you know, I developed my own mediumship and healing aptitudes. And I have been teaching others spiritual and psychic development for a very long time now. And of course, studying the subject at great length and in depth. And I've made many friends in this movement, this way of life, this religious belief system. And I'd just like to sort of talk about it, really. And this enables me to talk to many people that would otherwise be very, very squashed into our little Port Village Hall. Speaking of which, we hold a service every Thursday night there, the New Christian Spiritualist Society, that is, that has churches dotted all over the place now, and ministers and so on. But here in Littleport, the church hall probably the village hall probably could squeeze in 100 people, and there was such an amount squeezed in on one occasion when I did a double demo, as we call it, with Simone Key in aid of a charity, and people were very squashed. But here we can have any amount of people and you're not squashed at all. So I was going to talk as well about questions that I've been asked up until today. If you want to ask any questions, you can as a comment, and then I click on it here. Now, apparently, I don't see the Facebook comments. So Kathy will come in a little while when she settled the dogs and so on, and will read me out any comments that are there. And so far, I don't see any comments here that come up on YouTube. I'd also apologise to my friends in far-flung parts out of our time zone, because one of them, who lives in Oregon, apparently it's now about sort of 5 a.m, 6 a.m. in the morning. So, you know, one has to be a bit early to catch this live. But as you know, it runs back. Oh, yes, them upstairs are reminding me. There is actually a service going to be beamed out Thursday evening at 7:30 from the Liverpool Christian Spiritualists, and I will be saying a few words on that as well. So don't forget, tomorrow evening there is a service going out, and of course, as there are from many other churches all over the place. So do watch out for their notifications that come up. And about those questions, I did receive one question about reincarnation, and that's always been a recurrent subject for spiritualists. There are probably 50% who go along with the idea of reincarnation, and 50% who don't. And I am inclined to be with the 50% who don't, basically because I think that all reincarnation experiences can be explained away by mediumship. And by mediumship, I mean the kind that is highly attuned to spirit, and that somebody from the spirit side of life can actually impress themselves so closely on the body of the medium, the spirit of the medium, that it actually feels as if you are the person going through that life experience, previous life experience, with all its detail. But of course, that is the ultimate goal for any medium here, as far as I'm concerned. What I would love to be able to do as a medium myself is not only to receive impressions of the passing of the person who is trying to relay a message through me, but also to experience all the gamut of memories and experiences of that person while they were down here, to relay that to their loved one. But of course, because it's not necessary, we only really need to give 3 good pieces of evidence, I believe, from a person in spirit, from an individual in spirit, to a loved one down here, to prove that they have indeed survived physical death and are living on in a spirit dimension. So therefore, that the minutiae of their lives, or in its entirety, isn't necessary. But I do believe that those in the world of spirit can impress themselves so closely on somebody that it makes them believe that they are actually that person. That's my explanation for myself anyway. And of course, what we always say is you must come to your own conclusions. You must follow your own pathway of study and interest and come to your own conclusions there. So what I was being asked about was the fact that a child had transfigured into with the face of the mother's mother, and she was so amazed to see that, and she actually spoke to her about something, and she felt that, you know, perhaps this was a reincarnation of her mother, but in actual fact, as I explained it, that it was a transfiguration caused by that close impression of her mother on the granddaughter, on her own granddaughter, that actually made it possible for that contact and communication to be made, and for that remembrance, that close remembrance to be made. It actually happened to me. I went to greet a great grandson, and I suddenly saw that he was like his grandfather, and he was overjoyed, put his hands out and was overjoyed to clasp my hand, and everybody saw it, and it was extraordinary. It was like a sudden burst of recognition and joy at the union, and I can only say that was an extraordinary experience for me too. These experiences that I've mentioned, both my own and this other lady's, are spontaneous, and they have always been spontaneous expressions of spirit existence, have always been accepted by the Orthodox Church. What they don't accept is us going for it, actually asking people to come and speak with us, and actually to come along and relay communications from them to others who are waiting to hear their messages, which I think is could be called hypocritical, perhaps. On the other hand, you could understand some of the reins of control would be loosened there if they allowed everybody to have the services of a medium, and to know for sure that everybody lives on after they pass away from this life, and that you don't have to be any particular religion or colour or culture or anything to actually have that happen, because it's just, you know, it goes back to what I was saying in the first place about delivering babies here. You know, everybody that's delivered here, it has their lease of life, and they come from spirit. We are here as spirit in these physical bodies, in this physical world, this material world. We learn everything we can from that, and then we go back to whence we came. And we're there reunited with all our family and friends, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful situation. It is not confined to only one section of humanity. All humanity is also included in that. There is nobody left out there. So that's my bit of preaching. And I was going to talk about physical mediumship, really, because I think that fascinates a lot of people. I touched on it yesterday, and I mentioned as well that I've got sort of various accoutrements that are all around us here in this little living room here. And I thought you might like to see a couple of things. Now, here I have a wonderful crystal cut ball here. Now, this belonged to Doris Stokes. Now, before I actually could afford to buy one, I used to go to a local store in Lewisham, the China department, and I used to go and look at one of these that was in a cabinet, and I used to stare into it and see things, and I saw marvellous things in it. I saw plains and runways and deserts and all sorts of things I never ever dreamed, and mountains, ranges of mountains like the Rockies. Never dreamed for 1 minute that it was going to relate to me. And in fact, everything that I saw in that, I also saw in my, in my future as I came along to it. because I did see the Rocky Mountains, and I did see the desert, and I saw everything that I was shown. Anyway, the point is this, that I actually was able to get this because it belonged to Doris Stokes, because there was an auction of her memorabilia, and by that time I had a little money, and I went along because Doris wanted me to. She wanted me to have these things, and she told me that if I put my hand up every time she told me to, I would get the stuff, and at a price I could afford. So I just went along with it. I didn't really believe it, as usual, being skeptical. But here it is here, and a few other things that she made me get as well. Now, you might be interested to know, I took this with me to many a demonstration, just to be there, and I felt it was a kind of battery. And it was sometime after that I discovered that Emma Harding Britton, who used to demonstrate mediumship and gave oratory on behalf of spiritualism and so on, in the 19th century, actually had one herself. It was a sort of an amber colour, and I saw it for the first time in the museum at Stansted Hall at the Arthur Findlay College, and I was quite amazed by that, because I didn't realise that she had one too. There, so that was that. And then you know, there are seances that are held in red light now, and they make use of things like trumpets. You know, the trumpet that I showed you yesterday, that was a facsimile of the trumpet that Helen Duncan, famous physical medium, used in her seances. And there's this one here, which is unique, which I'm sure Sue won't mind me showing you. Now, this is a sort of a magnet. Oops, where are we? Sorry about that. This is a very strange object. Now, this is a magnetic. Oops, there it goes. See, it has a magnet. This is a magnetic trumpet. And the circle that Sue Willison was in with her partner were given the specification for this and told to make it. So they did, and I received one as a gift from that circle. Isn't that wonderful? It sort of wobbles around on its own, it comes off, and then it goes back on. It's amazing, actually. So I thought you might like to see that. And then, of course, from the very, very modern to the very, very old. Now, this here, look at this. This is called a planchette. It's an automatic writing machine. It has, as you will see, wheels. You put a pen or a pencil through there, tighten it up. Has a little tightener thing there, and you put it down on a board that has letters on it, the alphabet, and so on, and it will write away. Or of course, you put it on a plain sheet, and hope for the best, and hope you get a good message. What I will say to you is this, that it's not a game, and you have to always affirm your good intentions. Everything you do is done only for good, in the light and in the spirit of truth, and to ask your guides and helpers to be with you and protect you, because you really do need to do that if you're going to do any of this, you know, easily contactable type stuff. I would just recommend that you do that. I'm not saying, you know, don't do any of it, but just make sure that you're well protected from the Umnagatis, as Charles Dickens called them. Charles Dickens, of course, was totally anti-spiritualist, but he seemed to know a great deal about it. You know, we've touched on Harry Houdini before, and you could say that's the same kind of syndrome, isn't it? Where you debunk and dislike and publicly decry spiritualism, but are actually highly involved in it yourself, and in its phenomena, particularly as we've been speaking about. And I've been privileged to know people who have been what we call physical mediums, because they work in trance, and that means they elevate their abilities to a much higher frequency than we've got down here with our struggles to make ourselves better people. I have got a comment show up. She's good afternoon. Oh, Jean, good afternoon to you. It looks like you're the first caller there, but I shall warble on anyway, regardless, and I'm glad. I remember that Kathy and I set up a healing session one time in Hove, and it was in a very remote spot. So I'm already making excuses, right? Very remote spot, and people were very much part of the local parish church. So I don't know how many people were going to actually turn up. However, we did get 2, and we gave a service, and those 2 people became firm friends. And it turns out that they were healers themselves, and they joined in with us when we did some more work at a different community centre that was going strong right up until Reverend Denise Masherpa decided to move her particular service that we'd started there to another venue, also in Worthing. So do look her up, Reverend Denise Masherpa, and she's on Facebook.
You have no questions. I have people looking in. Kathy Brumpton.
Okay, thank you. It's all right. Apparently everybody's looking in, but John I have Brett's no questions.
John Brett's
hi, John. Speaking about old mediums.
Tammy Hutchinson.
Yeah. Right. So I'll have to dream up some questions that you might have asked. One of the things I found is that when I used to be doing private sittings, for instance, I would start a course and give people information and stuff like that. And then after about sort of maybe half an hour or so, I would say to the person, to the sitter, have you got any questions to ask me? And invariably they would say, well, you've answered them all already. So, I'm hoping that is the case today.
We have a question.
Oh, we have a question.
From Vanda Linden.
Yes.
Lynn, I only received lessons from official SNU teachers, and I was always told there are no bad spirits.
Oh. Right. Teacher Vanda Linden. I haven't seen you on here, but Kathy has told me that you have Facebooked me and said that you were taught by a particular organisation, and that you were also taught in that teaching that there were no bad spirits. Sorry, no question for David. Oh, good. Right. Where was I? Oh, yes. With you, teacher. Of course there are bad spirits. That is nonsense, isn't it? I mean, that's like saying there's no bad people. Or, or let's even take it further, no bad animals. I mean, we all know there are rogues in every species. There are certainly more rogues in the human race than any other, I would say. And as we accept that we all continue our existence in the world of spirit, how could there not be people of bad spirit over there too? Or do they just expire and disappear in a puff of smoke, to be seen and heard of no more? So I'm sorry that to have to go against that teaching, but I certainly would. That is a nonsense. You have to be rational, you have to be reasonable, you have to look at the facts. And if the fact is that all of humanity has continuous existence, if we are all of the Great Spirit, if we are all of the same family of humans, if we all continue our existence, how could there not be bad spirit? And you can, I mean, really and truly, it doesn't even, that doesn't make first base to say that there isn't any. So I would counsel you to use your own common sense in all cases, everybody that is, and to accept that where there is good, there is bad. This is preached all the time, you know, positive, negatives. You know, the only place where positives attract and negatives attract is in the world of spirit. Here on earth, positives and negatives attract, okay? But over there in the world of spirit, like attracts like, positive attracts positive, negative attracts negative. And we need to know that in order to protect ourselves who are living here, spirit in our bodies here, from any kind of interference by those who are in spirit who mean us no good. And if you like, that is how the orthodox established religions actually got their sort of, I don't know what you would call it, their case going for themselves. They wanted to protect people. So let's say they started with good intentions and have good intentions, wanting to protect people from the bad in life, in the bad in spirit. So they were looking at ways in which ordinary people, which is for the most part all of us, could protect themselves. So they would say, the stuff with the holy water, or the prayers and stuff like that. And yes, it does protect us, and we do need protection. But what I do know, and what I found out, is that all we have to do as ordinary people, we don't have to be priests or go to church or anything. We can just be in our own homes, even in our own bed or in our bathroom, and just pray for protection, ask our friends and helpers and family and guides in spirit, God himself, because ultimately everything goes to the Almighty and comes from that source. Just to say that you want to be protected from all evil. The Lord's Prayer says, deliver us from evil. Deliver us from evil. That is accepting there is evil. And there's not just evil down here. There is evil on the other side too. And to say that there isn't is almost, it's being in denial. And, it would be lovely if life and the afterlife was all just flowers and music and angels playing harps, but it ain't. And we need to know that, and we need to change the way we live, perhaps, ourselves, each individual. We know that we need to be as good as we can be and try not to have evil thoughts, because they are very powerful things. The thought is father and mother to the deed. So you must have good thoughts. Try and filter your thoughts. Try and make yourself love the person that you don't like the most. And again, Jesus, the great teacher, taught us that. Love one another. Love another as yourself. Try and give mercy. Show mercy unto others that you would want to have for yourself. I often think of that when I used to be driving in the car and getting really angry and fed up with people on the road with me who seemed to be getting in my way or going too slow or something, or getting something wrong. Perhaps they were taking ages to park and I was waiting to get into a car park. And I would always think to myself, no, show mercy, because you want mercy shown to you in various other ways. So there you are. So I would say that to you. So we have got some Miss Honey. Medium once said to my mum, not only good people die. Well, of course. that's we would say that is obvious, but that this medium herself or himself might have been worried by the fact that he'd been told that that was not the case. But of course, you know, everybody lives on. So I hope that that's clarified that for you, and probably put a few people's backs up in other organisations, but that's what I do. Nothing ordinary here. So what else? In the absence of specific questions, I would talk about some of the people then that I was privileged to know and know their work. Of course, a lot of this happened because of my being the editor of Psychic News. It was like being sort of the hub of a wheel, where all the spokes sort of actually radiated in rather than out. And what I did, I was reading my own book, which is the Spiritualist Handbook, and it's by the New Spiritualist Society, before we decided to put Christian in the name. Now, Reverend Nick Brown and Reverend Nick has always been my right-hand man, and we had these discussions, and we decided we would put Christian in it. So you'll see the lovely logo that he designed up here on this as well. Now, that's the other thing. You know, there's loads and loads of people from all sorts of different religious backgrounds who are spiritualists. And I say you don't have to leave that religious background to be a spiritualist. Anybody can be a spiritualist. You know, Muslims, Jews, Christians, everybody, because spiritualism is just a simple umbrella religion, really, for all of us. But we like to say Christian because that's of the early Christian variety, by the way. The one where everybody sort of went trekking around, trying to make things better for everybody. And there were no churches or cathedrals or anything. People were in their own homes or in little rooms, meeting rooms, up and upstairs, because different things, you know, living arrangements were downstairs. And there was like a drawing room upstairs, a salon. And in fact, a great fun thing for me was Eutychus. In the churches that I set up, I used to have a Eutychus group. They were to watch for people falling asleep. Now, he was a young man, and he'd gone to hear St. Paul talk on the subject of early Christianity, the spiritual way. And they were all crammed into this room upstairs on Troas. And he fell asleep. He was in the window, and of course there were no glass panes of glass in the window, and he fell out. So off he went down, and of course everybody rushed out. St. Paul, of course, was rushing out, and St. Paul flung himself on the boy and restored him to life. Basically, you know, he recovered him with his healing. So then they all trooped back upstairs again, and St. Paul announced that because of the interruption, he was now going to talk until the boat left at 4 a.m., you know, at dawn. So he was going to stop, I think, at midnight. I don't know who that reminds you of. But anyway, so I don't know why I was talking about Eutychus, but I thought it was quite nice. Now, Jean Duncan was a wonderful medium. Oh, and she didn't take any prisoners either. Wonderful woman. Now, speaking about Psychic News, I met her through my work there, and she used to go to the Spiritualist National Union conferences and with a bee in her bonnet and stand up and denounce all sorts of things. And anyway, she was a wonderful, wonderful medium. And she wrote a report for me. And she said this. In one seance, when asked about this, Spirit said that they were quite happy for her to come home, but that she still feels there is so much to do here that she keeps coming back. Now, the thing is that Jean was very ill, so she always kept having brushes with death. And she says this: I believe totally in spirit and the beautiful spirit world. If they told me to jump out of a window, I would do it. Immediately and without question. I serve them absolutely to the best of my ability and just wish I could do more. I feel that I'm always learning, and the more I find out, the more there is to know. This is why teaching is so important. Think of all the wisdom and teachings that have come through seances and inspirational writing and trance mediums and music. I believe our churches are the backbone and the shop window of spiritualism, and it's amazing that now, when the general public is showing more of an interest in spiritualism than ever before, psychic TV channels, ghost hunters and the rest of the media circus, our organisations just don't seem to be meeting this interest. Well, of course, hopefully we are. Now, this is what she said. Of course, I was reading the wrong page. Trust me. She says, at one of the seances, Spirit raised me in my chair a full 6 inches off the ground, and I'm a big woman. Yes, she was quite large. The seance was held in red light, so everyone could see what was happening, and people measured the height of the chair from the ground. Spirit then put my head up the chimney, a sealed chimney with a solid stone fireplace. I could feel the stone around my head, and it was quite marvellous and a bit terrifying. At another seance, Spirit materialised an eyeball, which floated inside the trumpet, and everyone saw it. Of course, it has to be seen by everyone for it to be true physical phenomena. We use luminous rods on the table at seances as well, and they regularly float around and tap people. The table always moves as well, and we use very solid, heavy tables. There. Isn't that a wonderful report? Of course, there was lots more to it, which I started to read you the wrong bit. Or was it, we ask ourselves. So if you want to read more about stuff like that, because I did include quite a few things like that in that handbook, and you can get it on Amazon. I will have a drop of water. And you know, I have mentioned before that if people do psychic work, they need to drink a lot of water because it depletes the water in their bodies. But also, physical mediums need water too, because the ectoplasmic substance that gets mixed in also requires water. And they take that substance from the medium's body. So therefore, the medium will require rehydration. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm warbling on here, and I haven't seen these questions. Right, I'll get my glasses out of the way. Put them there, sorry. Right, I'll put this up. Show. There we are. I started having out-of-body experiences in 2017, which have slowed down of late. The experience where a pink gem-shaped entity was hovering near my body. I said peace and love to it. Wow. Wow. Pink gem-shaped entity. What I would... oh, right, sorry. You've answered me. I was just about to say, did you speak? And you say, with my thoughts, it began emanating teal-coloured rays. Thanked it and said, I want to see Jesus. And it turned into a crystal clear window. Wow, that's amazing. Oh, I say. You know this thing about precious jewels? If you look in the ancient texts, you'll see lots of references to jewels, you know, gems and gold, diamonds, sapphires, because they are part of this planet, aren't they? They didn't just get dropped. They didn't just get, oh, what a lovely face. They didn't just get dropped here out of nowhere. They're actually part of the planet. And David's shield is described as having ornate jeweled surface on it. In terms of, wow. Now we come to the nitty gritty. What do I think this was? Well, obviously, it was a spirit emanation from the spirit world, projecting that to you so that you would see it. And I know it sounds strange, but you see, it's cause and effect. you saw that. Now, when was it? Oh, 2017, a couple of years ago, 3 years ago. And eventually, you see, you come to be asking of me what I think about it. And I'm sure that you have your own thoughts and that you've studied the subject, because you look like a jolly person who would not be put off and would look into everything. And I would say that I've seen many a gemstone, many crystals in the world of spirit. In our meditations, quite often we go into a cave made of crystals, and they're very healing. And often people are asked to actually take an object from a table, and on that table is always things like rose pink quartz, gemstones, even crosses. You said crucifix, I think. Yeah, crucifixes. We call them crucifixes if they have an effigy of Jesus nailed on the cross on them. We call them crosses if there is no effigy. And you have said crucifixes. And that would be considered to be Catholic, even with a small c, in essence. And I think it's, I think if you're wanting to see Jesus, then you were given a symbol. I think it was symbolic. I think pink is always love, and clear glass. St. Paul said sometimes we see only through a glass darkly, and you were given a clear glass. So I would say, oh right, yes, they were crosses. I thought they probably were. And I think that that it's something telling you to pursue a spiritual way of life, perhaps to find out more. It's encouraging you. Your spirit helpers are encouraging you to find out more. You'll probably end up finding out that your guide would have a name relating to that manifestation of spirit. So I think that pink is very important, and gold, of course, is also a highly spiritual colour, if you like. Now, I hope that's been useful to you. I'm just encouraging you to actually pursue the pathway that you should be on. Now, pink emanating and dark, perfect geometry, pink sign of this is marvellous, isn't it? Now, only I must take a drop of water here. Only the Americans, from where spiritualism sprang, would think that they would abolish the seventh colour of the rainbow, because they said nobody can see indigo. No one can discern that. So they have 6 colours and we have 7. And what we do know is that there are so many gradations of colour, because we are all on frequency of colour. And colour has a frequency, and we are living within that frequency. We're knitted together by the light. And the light, as you know, has all the colours of the rainbow in it and more. And we know about infrared at one far end of the spectrum, of the physical spectrum, and we know of ultraviolet at the other end. But what we can't see is the other colour going on from that either end. We don't have the ability as physical beings to appreciate those colours. And it's very fascinating that you said you've never seen them on Earth. The fact is that colour is everywhere. We just don't see it. And but we do see it when we go to spirit. And so you were allowed, wonderful, you were allowed to see some colours that we never see until we go back over to spirit again there. So that's lovely. There we are. So
I've got a long message here.
Thank you. I have another question here. What's your thoughts on psychic noise, please? In the early hours I was awake. I hears a loud whoosh. I was nursing at the time and found out a patient I was from. Well, that's basically they went. You know, you're fortunate to actually be privileged to hear such a thing. You know, sometimes people actually see the spirit of the person leaving a body that it's leaving, and sometimes you can actually hear that spirit leaving the body. And you know, nobody ever passes on their own. There are always people that come for that person, and as you know, entering into the earth atmosphere, it creates a disturbance. It does create a disturbance if it's really, really heavy, and that's what you would have heard. So that's amazing. So yes, and the other thing is this: in the Hebrew language, ruach means spirit as well as wind. That's something to think about. I know that I was terrified when I first saw those little whirlwinds in the desert. Out of nowhere, things would, you know, the brush would be whirling around. I mean, you know, how do they do that? But you see, it's a physical phenomena. It's part of our world and part of what our planet is able to do and show to us. But that is definitely, that was them coming for your patient. There you are. So, and probably because you were fond of, you were allowed to hear it. And then you were able to ask me about it and find out. So that's cool.
To answer this one.
Yes.
Susan Aldreeve says, hello Lynn, I'm interested to know and have asked other mediums before and I've never been told an answer. Is there a different feeling, vibration or otherwise that can differentiate between psychic and medium received messages so I know the difference as I chat away to spirit but don't know if I'm just chatting to myself. Thank you. And Judith Freeman says, afternoon, Rev Lyn.
Right, could I see that again, please?
I'm interested to know, and I've asked other mediums before, and I've never been told an answer. Is there a different feeling, vibration, or otherwise that can differentiate between psychic and medium received messages?
Right, yes.
So I know the differences as I chat away to spirit.
Yeah. No, I've got that. Right, now, if you heard, sorry, I'm trying to get that off. Yeah. I've just been asked from Susan on Facebook about the difference between psychic and spiritual, basically. Emanations that we get from spirit, and can we differentiate? And what I always say is this: that if you close your eyes and imagine, say, a pair of shoes. If you don't want to imagine them anymore, you can just think, well, I don't want to see them anymore, and you can see something else. If spirit had put that pair of shoes in your mind to look at, you can say, I don't want to see them as much as you like, but they will stay there. Unless you say to those in spirit, I'm fed up looking at this pair of shoes, would you take it away, please? And then they will take them away. So you know you're not speaking to yourself. So I suppose in a simple way, Susan, what you can do is ask your spirit helpers that you speak with to give you something that that heralds their presence and establishes that it's them that are there. So perhaps a flower, if you like pink flowers, for instance, you could ask them to give you a pink flower, put that in your mind or something like that, so that you know that it's them and not just your imagination. And the point is this, that it is a finer frequency that they come in on. It's a very, very similar frequency to our imagination. And that's why it can be very confusing. And it can even be confusing, more's the pity, for mediums who are in a public demonstration who aren't sure what they're actually getting. And, you know, it can be very, very fine line of frequency between what we imagine to be ourselves and what spirit put in. But it does come with its own life. Spirit input has its own life. It has its own vibration, and you will get used to that. So if you can develop your abilities, you say you speak with spirit, you develop your own mediumistic abilities, so that you know that with that attunement, that's what you feel when you get that communication from spirit, which is different from when you're just sitting in your chair or wandering about, minding your own business and just imagining things to yourself. In other words, thinking your own thoughts. The other thing to do about when you speak with spirit is, if you're actually asking them for something in particular, whether you get it or not. So that's another thing, you know. The other problem we have with getting things that we ask for from spirit is that they don't seem to have any idea of our urgency or the time that it takes. And of course, it's just a blink in their time, and it seems for ages and ages in hours. But you will get what you need, even if it's not what you want. But yes, you could try arranging some kind of you know, symbol with them that you receive, to know that you are getting information from them and not just out of your own mind. So I hope that's a bit helpful. And I can't see what you're saying, but of course other people who are on Facebook can. Right. So, yes, I can't type. Can you tell me, what's this one? Can you tell me, on developing mediumship, many different teachers or books speak about opening the different chakras, then some speak about calling in the white light. Well, there's nothing like adding a bit of mystery to all this, is there? And I would say that, you know, I'm not the right person to talk to. If I'm sure I'm the right person for you. If you want a load of mumbo jumbo with your spiritualism and with your mediumship, because developing mediumship, different chakras and the white light. What I say is this, that to develop your mediumship, you basically need to sit quiet. I hope I'm not boring everybody, because I'm always talking about this, and I've even written about it, of course, in my book, Spiritualist Handbook. You just must sit quiet, find a quiet space for yourself. If you haven't got a circle that you can go to, a spiritualist circle, that means a circle that is held in a church, spiritualist church, or a reputable medium has set up a circle that you can attend. But you basically need to develop mediumship through attunement to spirit. And to do that, you need to sit quiet. You need to have a guided meditation, so that you get used to going over to the other side, basically, in your mind, your spirit, in going to places that are beneficial, and that you become familiar with, and you then hopefully would meet a guide, somebody who will help you. You be appointed doorkeepers or a doorkeeper, someone who lets people in and out of your mind, and eventually you will be able to do this by just sitting quiet and saying, you know, everything I do for good and only for the good of others, and in truth and with the light and in love. And then you elevate your consciousness in your mind and you meet those in spirit. Now, about opening chakras. Your chakras are open anyway. If they weren't open, you'd be dead. They're synapses. They're vortices of energy that every living creature has. And yes, that is one good exercise for opening up, you might say, to outside spirit influence. And as for calling in white light, we've already spoken about light just before, and white light is all the colours. So I don't know about calling in white light. I don't think that you need to worry about calling in any kind of light, because the light is there for you. The light is knowledge, and any you know, just be simple about this. It's simple. If it wasn't simple, nobody would be able to do it. And to make it complicated and make it mysterious, you know, even the fact that people talk about chakras a lot, which is an Eastern term for, you know, a vortex, a synapse, and you know, we just need to be simple about our approach. And I should mention that there are a couple of development videos that I made with Rev Nick Brown. He took them, and they're about 45 minutes long, and they're on YouTube. So it's Lyn Gibb-de, and look for development of mediumship, and you can sit and I do guided meditations, and there are others as well that I put on. So just sit and have a meditation, and if you constantly do that, you know, I mean, even once a week if you can do it, because most circles sit once a week, and maybe you would meditate perhaps another couple of times as well if you had the time to do it at home. But certainly you will, if you don't rush and have patience and wait on that spirit, you will succeed in developing your mediumship. And I think what you have to do is decide that if there are too many and it appears to be confusing, dismiss it. Whatever it is, whatever you're looking at, whatever you're reading, if it becomes confusing, if it becomes difficult, if it looks like a sort of a morass, just leave it and just look for the simple answer. Look for the simple things. Look for the simple answer.
Susan said, "Thank you. I will try that."
So I hope. I suppose your name is Marcus. I hope that was that was helpful, and I do wish you well on your spiritual pathway. And looking at your lovely face, I would say you'd make a really good medium. So there you are. Well, where are we? Now here we go again. Rev Lyn, do you ever have to deal with spirits that are troublesome? Oh yes. Or spirits that follow you home? Or spirits that come to your home and hang around ever? Well, yes. I've had to deal with all those things. Spirits that are troublesome, I used to, if I was ever into making a job out of this, I could say that I had a job doing that, because I would be called to houses. Kathy and I have been called to houses and homes that have been sorely troubled by these spirits that apparently this other organisation says aren't bad and don't exist. And it doesn't have to be anywhere old, by the way. We were called to a modern bungalow once in Bognor, and they were very troubled with things going on in their home and outside and everything. Well, do you know what? It was just dreadful. So Kathy and I, our helpers upstairs, who I always consult, told us that we would have to hold a communion service. So I thought, right, okay. You know, I was talking before about rituals and ceremonials, you know, the things that the Orthodox churches actually do about preventing bad spirit or exorcising or whatever. So anyway, I was told that we would have to hold a communion service, which is what we did, because first of all, I investigated when we went round there, and I saw some really, really horrible things that should not have been there. We afterwards found out that the people there had been into black magic and stuff like that. So that's what had happened there. And we managed to do that. We held a communion service, and all was quiet after that. It was all fine. Now, so that was just one example. Spirits that follow me home. I expect so, because, you know, sometimes we've been troubled by people that shouldn't be there, if you know what I mean. Again, I've just said, you're not welcome here. I have tried to find out what their problem is and try and do something about that and send them packing, or to the right place, shall we say. So that's that, and following on spirits to come to your home and hang around. Well, sometimes people do hang around in spirit that shouldn't be hanging around. And again, we deal with that accordingly. And you must remember that everybody in spirit was once down here, the same as us. So it's only another human being, basically. And, you know, you just learn how to deal with it, that's all. And you have to be as good as you possibly can be down here in order to do that, because they will be attracted to anything nasty. So if you've got nasty thoughts going on in your mind, you don't want them, because the nasties out there will be attracted to those nasty thoughts. So it's much better to try and work on oneself to be a bit better person, so you don't get that. Oh, you're glad I will put that up. Yes, quite. And you have said, Marcus, I'm just putting your comments up so that everybody else can see. There you are. Now, what have I got here? Where do our loved ones go when they pass away? So, Rob, sound curious about my young sister who passed away in 2018. I was going while out of body. Oh. Everybody goes back to where they came from, which is the world of spirit. If they have lived an ordinary, decent life down here, and I'm not talking about a moralistic one, I'm just talking about people who mind their own business, do what they can for other people, do what they can for themselves, their families, whatever, make the mistakes, try and make up for them, you know, bunk on the train and don't pay their ticket, hope they don't get caught, you know, all these things that happen in life. They will all just pass over to this wonderful place that is often called the Summerland. It's a dimension wherein there are many places that look like here. It's an etheric duplicate, really, of the world itself as it is. And this is why it's so important to try and build heaven here on earth, because then all the duplicate will be on the other side, so it will merge into the one, you see. So where they go is that's the first level that people go to, because it's where their loved ones are. You know, we're not the only ones they loved. They had, parents, grandparents, great grandparents, and stretching right the way back. And people want to welcome them when they return, and especially if there's somebody in particular that they're very fond of while they're down here on earth and it's over there. That's a reunion. And their purpose or role is the same as ours. We have a purpose in life, which is to make things better for everybody. And ultimately, to be as if you like, God-like, as Christ-like as we can be. And to make life more comfortable for everybody. And nobody has an actual role or purpose that they have to fill. But I suppose you could talk about people who go on to more elevated planes of existence and become, I see, yes, they're telling me, aren't they? They're talking about what do they do. If people liked animals, for instance, say your sister liked animals, she might be appointed to a sort of animal sanctuary, welcoming sanctuary, where perhaps animals who've been abused and then died because of it pass into when they pass over. So she would perhaps go and be looking after that. And again, if people were very fond of children, they might be appointed to a children's sanctuary where children that are passing over come to be comforted and looked after, and meet up with friends and family and so on, and have good things given them to cheer them and to make them understand that they have this better life now. So that's what people do over there. They all sort of do all sorts of different things. And of course, as I said, if they become more spiritually progressed in certain ways, they can ultimately, join the angelic hosts, and they can be guides and helpers to people down here. All sorts of things to do. So I hope that's been helpful to you. Blue ring appeared within it, a white orb. Oh, right, that's what happened. Oh, I see. Well, that's lovely. I mean, that's just lovely. I don't know how they managed to, give us all these signs and wonders that there are, but they certainly do, and it does make you feel absolutely wonderful, doesn't it? I mean, I've been made to feel as wonderful many times as I've been made to feel horrible many times. And I will say that I've not been made to feel horrible by those in spirit, only by people over here still. So there you are. I think we've probably come to the end of our right. And again, it's just the same again as yesterday. Them upstairs, they tend to shut me up after about an hour. They allow me a bit of leeway, I suppose, where they feel that what I'm saying isn't relevant. They edit it probably up there. So start to focus on developing listening to spirit and mediumship as per your advice. Oh, I'll share that so that people can see. Yeah, great. But do have a look on the development and meditation videos that I've made on YouTube, because I mean, it's all free, and if you can stand listening to me for the longest one, I think is that, as I mentioned, the two that Reverend Nick Brown made. The others are, I think, much less than that, but do have a look, and I do wish you all well with your own development. We're all developing all the time, I certainly have never stopped learning and trying to do more and trying to do better. Even though I still remember my old school reports that said could do better, could do with improvement, stuff like that. Well, I used to think, how much more can I do? Little did I know you can do a lot more. But there you are. So I hope that you've enjoyed this little hour or so with me. I certainly enjoyed chatting with you and helping you on your way. And I think that, you know, any kind of spiritualism is good, because the basics is just that it depends on the fact that we can communicate with those who have passed over into the world of spirit. We do live on after the transition that we call death, and we are able to communicate back through the good offices of mediums. So there we are. And the psychic stuff, of course, is all good fun, and it actually helps us hone up our, you know, our sensitivities, so that we can actually eventually, you know, raise our consciousness sufficiently to communicate with that world of spirit that is all around us, as Harriet Beecher Stowe wrote in her lovely poem. It lies around us like a cloud. There. So I'll say God bless to you. And I'm told by Kathy that I will not be doing one of these tomorrow, because in the evening I'll be involved with the Liverpool Christian Spiritualists, and they're doing a broadcast. And so I shall see you again, please God, with the help of God, Be'ezrat Hashem, as Jesus would have said, on Friday at 2 o'clock. So I'll say goodbye for now. Fare you well.